Good morning, this is David Benson with Cornhusker Hybrids LLC in Lincoln, Nebraska, where our trademark and mantra is success starts with the seed. Today, I'm going to present deadly plant breeding sin number 5 called failure to improve the accuracy of selection. If you're doing this one wrong, you will never ever be successful. This is everybody's job in the business. And I doubt if anyone has put it on your job description or you ever talk about it at meetings or retreats, but that's really what your job is. Now, I'm going to revert back here a little bit to some of my graduate teaching way back in the day, over 30 years ago. Walt Fair's book, Principles of Cultivar Development, and we spent a lot of time on the genetic gain equation. Now, in those days, it was just like a blur. You're just trying to figure out how to get from one class to the next, how to pass the next test, how to do things when you're a graduate student trying to survive. But it really is the whole basis of all the jobs in plant breeding is to create genetic gain. So simply, in this book, Walt Fair's book, Principles of Cultivar Development, it's just genetic gain is equal to the selection intensity, which you can change and it can impact the final numbers, maybe not the accuracy. The parental control, which for most of you doesn't enter in unless you're working with half sibs, full sibs, or something that's other than 1, and then the added genetic variance, which is the genetic variance you can exploit in a plant breeding operation from genes that add independently and additive. So again, this is all over years, which is by far probably the biggest single variable in the whole entire equation. But if you've got the doubled haploids or speed breeding in some other crops and you're running as fast as you can, that variable is essentially 1. You just kind of eliminate it if you want to look at selection. And then it goes into the standard deviation of the phenotypic variance, which is the error variance over the number of environments, the genotype by environment interaction variance over the number of environments, and the genetic variance, which is additive by dominant by additive, epistasis, and a lot of other things. So that's the base. Now, if we want to cut to the simple, we're going to use Borlaug's equation, where essentially it boils down to the selection intensity times the accuracy of selection. And what he conveniently does is picks up a lot of the phenotypic variance and other sources of lack of perfection and combines them in a little variable, little r, called the accuracy. And then that's all times the additive genetic variance again. Well, if you say your selection intensity in your years are 1, if you want to, because you're not changing them, then it just boils down to the accuracy of selection times the additive genetic variance, which is normal, or the narrow sense heritability is essentially the additive genetic variance. Again, so you're going to end up with the accuracy of selection times the heritability, which the most it can be is 1. And I'm sure that none of you are getting 1. As a matter of fact, my guess is none of you, or very few of you, could even tell me what those two variables are in your material. And you really ought to know that, or you ought to be fired, in my opinion. What are you doing if you're not working to improve genetic gain? That's everybody's job, from the secretary to the director of research, is to improve the accuracy of selection. And you're going to improve it by your R is going to get better. So when it gets better, you're going to improve the heritability. So those two things come together are going to equal improvements in genetic gain. Now, if you want to be a productive breeder, that's your job. But say you think about it, you come in every day to your job. How many of you pull in the parking lot and say, well, today I'm going to improve accuracy selection, and I'm going to try this. I'm going to go out and take better notes. I'm going to fly that drone at a different altitude. I'm going to do a better job of spraying. I'm going to do a better job of stand count. I'm going to do a better job of measuring these plants. When I'm counting seed, I'm going to do a better job. When I'm, all right, well, how do you do that? Everybody's got something they can do to improve the accuracy of selection. You make better pollinations in the nursery. You can take more time. You can put in more effort. You're not going to improve it by planning your next trip or answering emails, most likely. So I'm a little bit critical, but I'm an old school guy, If you want to be successful, get out and do something. Just take an action. Take initiative. Show that you want to help the company succeed, and they will respond. And if they don't, another company will come along and hire you that will. So, you get right down to it. There's really, in my whole life, and all the time in this business, there's two things that have aggravated me to no end. And that is the quality of my testing locations and the quality of the data and the quality of seed coming out of off-season nurseries. You could fix those two things, you could probably double your heritability. Now, you've got the situation with phenotypic variants where you're looking at multiple genotypes over multiple locations over multiple years. And pretty soon you start thinking about all the things that can happen to those plots, and you've got this gigantic, matrix of variables that'll stop a crazy supercomputer. So, this is the problem. If companies wanted to do the best thing they could to improve their accuracy of selection, they have got to improve the quality of their data. And one of the best ways to improve that quality of the data is by having the best locations to measure and discriminate amongst genotypes, so that they don't get advanced just because they're lucky, they get advanced because they're best. So location selection and location discard, I think there should be location selection, location discard every year. It should be just like if you're a small business and you have a number of customers. Every year, you want to get rid of your poorer customers. They ain't helping you that much. And it's the same way with poor locations. Well, it adds a number. Well, so what? When you can operate on this thing, you can go like Holden's used to do 100 years ago. Well, by the time you get all these locations, one poor one doesn't really affect it that much, and there's some truth to that. But that's not a reason for doing it. There's ways you can figure out the utility of a location. Plant checks in different places over the years and just keep track of how similar those are. Because when I first come in this business, the first thing I learned was how lousy my data was, because the person that had been there before me had some missing entries, and he planted essentially the same checks in the missing entries. And lo and behold, none of these missing entries ever had the same value. Geez, I wonder why. That's called error. So, improve your locations, improve the accuracy selection, improve the quality of the seed and the work done in your off-season nurseries, and everyone come to work every day, put on your little, I'm going to improve the accuracy of selection goggles, and go to work to do your job a little bit better than you did before, whatever it is. Whether it's the secretary answering the phone, whether it's the guys that are planting the yield trials, whether it's the people that are cleaning the seed, whether it's the person sticking the labels on the envelopes, all that stuff comes in. Do it better. Improve the accuracy of selection. Improve that little R so that you can get a better measure of the true heritability and the differences between these genotypes, and gradually and incrementally increase the accuracy of selection and the genetic gain. So if you are an average rank and file person within an average company, you need to go out every day and improve the accuracy of selection. And if you do that, you will help your company increase food security and decrease food insecurity, improve their competitive position, improve the products on the marketplace, and improve yourself in the process. So I'd like to close today by saying that Failure to improve the accuracy of selection, deadly sin number 5 is one that each and every employee in the seed industry, in breeding programs or seed multiplication programs, can improve and work to improve every day. And if the company and the research directors and the hierarchy make it known to the employees, and the employees know this and rewarded for this, I think you would see some real gains. So work on better locations and better statistical analysis. And I don't believe in statistical gymnastics, but there are some ways to take a look at things in a different way, maybe better. And the seed quality, and unleash your people's creative talents to improve the accuracy of selection in your plant breeding business. This is David Benson with Cornhusker Hybrids LLC in Lincoln, Nebraska, saying have a great day. We're almost into pollination time here, and life is good. Thank you, and give me some feedback.